Service. Well, folks, it's right on schedule, just the way they wanted. We promised to follow this story and this issue, and today we got some more bad news. The Postal Service lost a record $16 billion last fiscal year. That's about $42 million per day. But remember, the Postal Service was set up to lose money. Here's how. In 2006, Republicans passed a law in the lame duck session of the Congress to drive the Postal Service out of business. That's the only conclusion you can come to. They created a no-win situation. The post office was making money then. Republicans came along and created an economic burden no other agency or private company has had to bear in the history of this country. That says a lot, doesn't it? The Republicans forced the post office to contribute $5.5 billion to the retirement and health care fund every year. The fund extends, 40 years into the future. Some of the retirees haven't even been hired yet. The United States Postal Service doesn't cost you a dime. That's right. Doesn't cost you a dime. It gets zero federal tax dollars. Congressman Darrell Issa, he lives in a different world. He's the leading Republican in charge to end Saturday mail delivery and cut jobs.
I think the American people look at the post office as something they don't use very much, but would like to have it still around.
Really? They don't use it very much. Darrell Issa acts like the Postal Service is just a luxury and always has been. Americans depend on the Postal Service to deliver things like medicine and absentee ballots, FedEx and UPS. They couldn't get into some of these neighborhoods hit hard by Hurricane Sandy. U.S. letter carriers delivered. But Republicans think the Postal Service should do even more.
Like any business, UPS, FedEx, the post office, it can live within its means if it makes appropriate changes.
How can he say that? How can he say that with a straight face and have any integrity whatsoever? The post office is already required to live within its means, pays for itself. I challenge the congressman from California to name any other business that could stay open under this business model enforced by the Republicans. The Postal Service has cut costs by $15 billion since 2006, trying to keep up with these regulations that were imposed on it by a Republican lame duck session of the Congress. We've lost almost 170,000 jobs in the process, and a lot more are coming. We need Congress to get the Postal Service a much better deal. So far, the only related legislation that I'm aware of on the docket are 4 bills asking to name post offices after famous people. Let's bring in Congressman Gerald Connolly of Virginia tonight. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Great to be back with you, Ed.
This story bothers me because this is the government getting in the way of an operation that was successful. Why did the lame duck session of the Congress do this in 2006?
You know, I think Republicans really don't like the post office because it's very big, it's quasi-governmental, and it's unionized. And what's ironic about their opposition and their determination to engineer it to fail, as you said, is that it is the only service to be provided to the American people mandated in the Constitution of the United States, which they say they believe in. You can look it up in Article 1, Section 8. The post office is right there in the Constitution of the United States. And I think we have a sacred obligation to make it work and to create a new business model. They're resisting that because they want it to fail.
Why can't someone, and I'll ask you, in the Congress bring forth a bill that will reverse this entire law? Now, what is happening here is that they have to fund health care and retirement benefits for the next 75 years in a 10-year window. Darrell Issa would never run a business like that. No business would have a business model like that. This is set up to fail. So why don't the Democrats, these are, hardworking folks, why doesn't somebody come up with a bill to reverse this entire thing?
You know, when we marked up Darrell Issa's so-called postal reform bill, which passed out of our committee on a party line vote, we had an amendment led by Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts to do just that, to pull back on that prepayment requirement and to refund the Postal Service for the overpayments they've been making since the passage of the 2006 law. That was defeated in a party line vote. That's the single most important thing you can do to relieve the post office of a huge financial burden. Of the $15.9 billion you cited that they lost, $11.1 billion is attributable to this onerous prepayment provision.
Well, that, of course, is $11 billion that they can't use to be competitive with the private sector.
That's right.
That they can't to service rural areas in the country and upgrade their infrastructure. And there's some serious money involved in this decision. UPS spent more than $123,000 lobbying Republicans before the 2006 vote. It hasn't lobbied since. FedEx is considered a heavy hitter on Capitol Hill. It spent more than $645,000 on Republicans just last year.
And you know, Ed, the bill you cite, bad enough this prepayment thing, but it also proscribes the Postal Service from getting into any kind of other line of business.
Limit their business. They limit the scope of what they can do to operationally compete. And who's going to, you know who's going to hurt, Congressman? And you know this, I know this. Tell our audience, it's small businesses in rural America that are going to get nailed on this.
We need to create a new business model, but the 2006 legislation won't let us do it. They're doing it in Europe and making a profit.
Congressman Gerald Connolly, thanks for sticking up for the workers. It's the